night is dark and full of theories.
What if Ned Stark convinced Jon Snow not to join the Night's Watch? Let's explore its depths in the video.
There's great honor serving in the Night's Watch. The Starks have manned the wall for thousands of years. And you are a Stark. You might not have my name, but you have my blood.
Ned Stark looks at Jon Snow, wondering if this truly will be the last time they will see each other. Benjen said that Jon was most insistent on joining, even begging for the honor. But Lord Stark knows it is different to say that now than once he is on the wall, and he cannot truly let Jon go without telling him.
But are you truly certain this is something you want? It's a lonely path on the wall. Winterfell will always be your home. All due respect, Father. It doesn't seem like my home without you. But there on the wall, it is a place where I may rise and win respect. It is not the only place you may win respect. But if you're worried about me, I wouldn't mind having you by my side in the capital. Really? But be warned, Jon. The capital isn't Winterfell. It is a harsh place, and from what I've heard, it's only gotten harsher. A bastard might not be well received there, even one from a high lord. A few harsh words don't bother me, Father. If a few harsh words were all I was concerned with, I would have asked you to join me far sooner. There are dangers there even I fear to face. Rumors and plots aplenty. So, I'm asking you now, if you go with me, there may be a time that I will not be able to protect you or your sister. If that happens, do you promise to keep them safe? I do. Good.
Ned soon sends to his brother that Jon will not accompany them. Although a bit disappointed to return to the wall alone, Benjen is relieved to hear this and wishes them both well. However, the journey south soon runs into trouble when Nymeria bites Joffrey's hand and forces Ned to execute a direwolf. With Nymeria gone, Cersei orders that Sansa's wolf be killed instead. They nearly do the same for Ghost, but Jon protests.
A bastard should know his place and how to address the Queen.
And the Queen should know that this direwolf is here to protect my father. Would you have the hand stripped of that?
That thing is not protection. It's a beast. It bit my son.
That beast you're referring to is not among us. Surely you can tell the difference between white and grey. Ghost had nothing to do with this.
Cersei reddens in anger, but Robert laughs.
The boy has you there, wife. This wolf has no part in this incident. You'll get your fur coat, so be grateful you get that much. As for you, boy, I suggest you keep that wolf far away from my wife, if you value its life. It will be done, your grace.
While Ghost is spared execution, Lady is not so fortunate and is put down by Ned. Thankfully, they reach the capital with no further problems. His father immediately is thrust into the position of Hand, being briefed on the realm's state of affairs and preparing the Hand's tourney. Meanwhile, Arya and Sansa continue their lessons in the capital. This leaves Jon Snow alone. Taking his father's word to heart, he spends most of his time with Jory and the other Stark guardsmen. The incident on the Ruby Road only further motivates him, as he sees just how dangerous the Lannisters are. Jory notes his growing skill and urges him to train with the other knights. He reminds him that many knights are arriving in King's Landing, and he will be able to test his skills. Among these knights are soldiers brought by Stannis, who makes a surprise return. According to him, he is simply there to witness the Hand's tournament. Those who know Stannis, though, immediately know this is a lie. Stannis and Ned immediately form an unofficial alliance, as they agree with most things and generally work together well. Seeing his father's cooperation with Stannis, Jon feels more comfortable with them. The training yard in the Red Keep stands empty as night begins to set, but Jon Snow continues to train, his sword moving in fluid arcs. His only company is Ghost, until footsteps ring out behind him.
Not bad for a young wolf.
Sir Davos Seaworth holds a training sword in his hand and nods a greeting. At first, Ghost growls at him, but quickly relaxes when Davos whistles and holds his hand out. To Jon's surprise, the direwolf pads over and licks his maimed hand.
Do you want to spar, Sir Davos? I'm afraid I'd be poor competition. You'd be better off with that straw dummy. But don't hold back on my account.
Jon strikes first, testing Davos with quick, calculated blows. It's clear Davos isn't downplaying as he struggles to hold him back.
I would have thought a pirate would make a better swordsman. I was never a pirate. I was a smuggler. And the difference is, pirates live to rush at ships and cause havoc. Smugglers tend to run away from them. If you're a good smuggler, you would never need to cross swords with anyone.
Davos deflects his next swings, but offers little in way of counterattacks. For a time, it seems Jon has the advantage, his youth and strength pushing Davos onto the back foot. His maimed hand also makes it difficult for him to hold his sword, constantly adjusting his grip. Jon senses this weakness and presses forward. Davos then shifts his weight, using his smaller frame to dart in close. Before Jon can react, Davos hooks a boot behind his leg and sweeps him to the ground.
Yeah, that wasn't fair. You expected a smuggler to play fair? Boy, fair doesn't matter when you're fighting for your life. It's not about cracking swords or playing knight. It's about winning. You think the men who fight for crowns and coins care about honor? My father does. Aye, your father is a strange bird. Begging your pardon. No wonder he and Lord Stannis get along so well. But these trainers will teach you how to swing a sword properly. Aye, but they won't teach you what matters. Hedge knights, sellswords, they've seen the worst of it. You speak as though you've seen it all. Seen enough to know that lowborn like us, we're not meant to play by their rules. We're not meant to win these games. I've spent my life keeping my head attached and my lord alive. That's what matters. You do the same for Ned Stark. I would. Would you do the same for Lord Stannis? I have, and I would again. You're loyal to a fault, boy. That's rare in places like this. I'd advise you to leave this place before it chews you up and spits you out. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem like an option for men like us.
The two men share a long look before beginning to laugh. Davos smiles and claps Jon on the back. He gives Ghost a scratch behind the ears before heading out. Soon after, the day of the tourney arrives, and Jon Snow is among those who participate in the melee. Using the skills he's learned from Sir Davos and the Hedge Knights, he manages to defeat and disarm over a dozen opponents before being knocked out. One person who catches his eye isn't a knight, it's a woman. Melisandre approaches Jon as he's recovering from the melee. She reaches out and helps tend to his wounds. Jon is surprised and more than a bit flustered to feel her touch, but allows her to tend to him, wrapping his bandages around his arm. She follows by inviting him to her quarters to talk. Jon Snow agrees, and when he arrives, he's surprised to find Stannis there waiting for them.
Expecting another sort of meeting, were you? Lord Stannis, Calm yourself. I won't be telling your father. I've come to speak with you. Though, the eyes in this damned castle prevent me from reaching out openly. I won't mince words. I think you've seen the corruption in this place as much as I. I know little of the games of court, but I know much of men, and the court seems airheaded. A polite way of saying foolish. Call them what they are. Flatterers and fools, all of them. Tell me, what do you think of the Crown Prince? Golden-haired Joffrey. I can't believe my father would let me censor after what he did. Your anger is misdirected. It's my brother who wishes that match. The corruption starts in his bed. I don't understand.
Stannis doesn't say anything, but glances around as Melisandre nods her head.
Your father and I have been investigating something that affects the royal family and could change everything. Unfortunately, many parties in the court would rather keep this secret we're about to uncover buried. Why are you telling me this? Because I fear that soon this court, maybe the entire 7 kingdoms, may become a battleground. Your father may believe he will protect you by sending you north, but it will not pass.
I have seen it in the flames, Lord Snow. There is a war coming. A war like no other. The Great War. The last war. You shall have your part to play. When this war comes, not even the North shall be safe, unless you take action.
Jon can hardly believe the words they are saying. Stannis admits that it is much to take in and allows him to go, letting him sleep on it. In the meantime, he and Ned continue their investigation. With Stannis there, he corroborates everything Jon Arryn confided in him. Together they begin looking through old records, meet with some of Robert's children, and try to make sense of the mess the king has left. But as they do, the situation only grows worse as they soon get reports of Catelyn capturing Tyrion, leading Ned to be injured. Soon after, Ned concludes that Robert has no true-born children with Cersei, and all of them are bastards. He prepares to bring this report to Robert once he returns from hunting, but the situation only deteriorates. Raiders from the west, most likely Lannister soldiers, are mobilized and raid the Riverlands, while larger armies are being assembled. Jon Snow watches all of this and asks his father what is happening. While Ned does not go into specifics, he simply states that his worst fears have come to pass, and that he may have to send Jon and his sisters away. Jon Snow initially agrees, but then recalls the warning Melisandre gives, and suggests that he stay here and help him. Ned tries to turn him away, but Jon reminds Ned that he vowed to protect him too, and that once Arya and Sansa are safe, his place will be with him. Ned tries to dissuade him, but sees the defiant look on Jon's face and realizes there is no changing his mind. He agrees, but assures him it might not even come to that, as Robert should be returning soon, and he can explain everything. Though the king does come back, it is not the way Ned expects. When he returns, Robert is close to death, and expires not long after. However, he does name Ned a regent for Joffrey, and effectively makes him king. Unsurprisingly, these terms are not honored by Cersei. She demands that Ned swear fealty to Joffrey or risk death. The King's Guard reaches for their swords, and just as violence is about to erupt, Stannis steps forward, a dozen of his men joining him, adding their swords to Ned's fighters. All of Stannis' men are experienced knights, which, although still leaving them outnumbered, evens the odds.
I think not. The Queen Mother has deceived you. I am sure many of you have wondered about my absence these past few months. It was because I was privy to information left by the late Jon Arryn. He believes that Prince Joffrey and his siblings are not Robert's true-born children.
Lies. Slander. You are speaking to your king, uncle.
I'm speaking to a bastard born of incest, unfit to even polish the throne, much less sit on it. Now move aside, or I shall have you moved.
I want his head.
The King's Guard draw their swords, and the sound of steel being unsheathed fills the hall. Ned steps back to form a defensive line with his men. Stannis Baratheon raises his own blade, his knights quickly moving to his side. Though outnumbered, their disciplined stances exude calm determination.
Stand down. Any man who lifts his sword for this false king will answer to me.
The Hound charges forward, his blade aiming for Stannis. But before he can reach him, a figure in white intercepts. Sir Barristan Selmy.
I swore to protect the realm, not a lie.
The Lannister guards surge forward, and the throne room becomes a storm of bodies, blades, and blood. Ned hobbles out of reach as Stannis fights beside the Stark men. Outside the throne room, Jon Snow sprints through the chaos, his heart pounding. Servants scream and flee as guards clash in the corridors. Jon weaves through the carnage, his practiced sword clutched tightly. He knows his task: find his sisters. He reaches the living quarters first, throwing open door after door until he hears a familiar voice. Arya. She is darting through the halls, chased by 2 Lannister guards. Jon steps between them, his blade catching one of the guards in the side before he can react. The other turns, snarling, but Jon is quicker, his training taking over as he drives his sword into the man's chest. The first man tries to rise and attack, but Arya drives a needle into his side, allowing Jon to finish him off.
Stick them at the pointy end, right?
Jon manages a smile as he wipes tears from her eyes. He guides her away from the chaos, running through the halls, dodging skirmishes in the castle until they come upon Sansa. She's trembling, held by Sir Boris Blunt.
Stay back, bastard!
He shoves Sansa behind him and draws his sword. Jon says nothing, his jaw tightening as he steps forward, readying his sword. Boris charges, his heavy blade swinging in a wide arc. Jon ducks low, the tip of Boris's sword grazing his shoulder, but Jon counters with a quick thrust. Boris blocks it and twists to the side, shoving Jon back. Growling, Jon pushes forward with another burst of attacks. Surprised by the aggression, Sir Boris begins to give ground, but none of Jon's attacks manage to cause any damage due to his heavy plate. This gives the knight a chance to rally and sweeps his sword in a wide arc, forcing Jon to break off. As he prepares to strike, the bastard is faster, sidestepping his swing and slamming his shoulder into the knight's side. As he falls, Boris overextends with a heavy swing, and Jon seizes this chance. He ducks under the blade and drives his sword into Boris's exposed neck. The knight gurgles, his eyes wide with shock as he collapses. Jon stands over him, chest heaving, his practice sword slick with blood.
Sansa, Arya, come on!
As they reach the courtyard, they are surprised to find Sir Davos standing alongside a group of Baratheon and Stark men. The smuggler waves at them and calls them over.
Jon, you survived. Good. We're about to join your father.
Barristan cuts down the Hound with a graceful slash, while Stannis and his knights carve a path through the remaining Lannister forces. But in the chaos, Sir Mandon and Preston manage to rush out, the Queen in tow. Joffrey tries to follow, but is tripped by Ned Stark. As the last of the Lannister guard falls, the room goes silent, except for the labored breathing of the victors. Stannis strides toward the throne.
It's over. Yield, or face justice.
I yield. I yield.
The Baratheon and Stark forces quickly secure the castle. Unfortunately, there is no sign of Cersei or Tommen, as in the chaos, a group of Lannister men manage to escort them out. With the City Watch under their control, they are easily able to get through the city gates and rejoin their father in the Riverlands. But with this defeat, the capital is lost to the Lannisters. But while they might have captured King's Landing, holding it is another matter. Robert's will is read aloud across the city, while copies are made and sent to other castles and towns. Janos Slynt and Littlefinger are both arrested, the former confessing the latter's plan to bribe them during their imprisonment. Ned writes to Robb, urging him to strike south. By this point, Robb is already on the move and manages to score a victory against Jaime Lannister, capturing him and leaving Tywin on the back foot. However, Tywin has a clear line of retreat, as Ned and Stannis have virtually no troops in the city beyond the City Watch. While Stannis raises his vassals, Ned rides across the houses in the Crownlands, urging them to rally whoever they can. They manage to get the support from houses Rosby, Stokeworth, Riker, and Faring, along with a few houses. But this is nothing compared to Tywin's 20,000 soldiers. The only upside, Tywin is not prepared for a siege, so cannot take the city by storm until he builds siege weapons. With their defenses stretched, though, there isn't much the defenders can do. Every day a gate comes under attack, or the Lannister men launch scaling ladders to gain the wall, and every day they defend. While Ned has overall command, his wound prevents him from taking an active role in the battle. Instead, that falls onto Jon and Sir Barristan. Jon appears everywhere, rallying the troops and trying to provide relief where he can. He manages to beat back multiple assaults and remains accompanied by Sir Aerys and Barristan. When he's not with the knights, he's with Ghost, who lives up to his name, ripping through men and scaring off horses. Together, their efforts ensure the Lannisters never establish a permanent foothold. On some occasions, they even launch sorties and raids on the Lannister host. While these attacks are not big, they manage to disrupt their lines and keep them on their toes. Siege towers begin to rise after several days, and one of the hastily built platforms comes rumbling toward them. The crude structure takes the attention of most of the defenders. Even in its ramshackle state, it takes plenty of effort to destroy it. But this is a diversion, as while this is happening, Tywin orders another assault with scaling ladders by Gregor. The mountain soon gains a foothold, sweeping aside any opponent in his way. When Jon and Sir Barristan hear of this, they hurry to that portion of the wall and try to hold him back. When Jon and Barristan arrive, the mountain has already carved a foothold, his men surging up the ladders behind him. They waste no time and attack. Barristan is the first to reach the mountain and swings his sword at them. The old knight ducks under the attack and comes close, his sword flashing against a dozen points in his armor in the same number of breaths. As the mountain tries to shove him back, Jon runs to his side and strikes wherever there is an opening. He doesn't fully engage the mountain, letting Sir Barristan handle that. Sir Gregor roars and sweeps his sword around, but Sir Barristan moves with the grace of a man a third his age, dodging each blow and countering with precise and methodical attacks. While he cannot break through the large man's armor, he finds weak points and lands a few blows. One particular attack manages to drive his sword under the mountain's armpit, causing him to roar out in pain. Jon circles, waiting for his chance. He watches as Barristan ducks under a heavy swing and slashes the mountain's thigh, drawing blood. Gregor roars, enraged, and retaliates with a brutal overhead strike. Barristan barely sidesteps, but the edge of the blow catches his shoulder, splitting his armor and drawing blood. Jon deflects the next strike aimed at the older knight. Jon's sword clashes with Gregor's, the impact jarring his arms and nearly sending him tumbling off. But his speed keeps him alive as he dodges the next attack. The wounds Sir Barristan gives him slow Gregor down, leaving him struggling to swing.
Strike low!
Jon grits his teeth, feigning high before diving into a slash at the mountain's injured leg. The blow lands and Gregor staggers, roaring in pain. Barristan, despite his injury, lunges forward, driving his sword into the mountain's side. Gregor swats at him like an insect, sending Barristan sprawling, but the wound is deep. The mountain falters, his movements slowing further. Now it's Jon's turn. He steps in, dodging the clumsy blows as he drives his sword upward, pushing it at his unprotected side and sending him tumbling to the ground. While he struggles, Jon frees a dirk and drives it between Sir Gregor's helmet slits. Breathing hard, Jon looks to Barristan, who nods in approval, despite the blood running down his side.
Well fought, Snow.
But that isn't the only foe, as Gregor's men surge forward. Jon lays the old knight behind him and defends him against several attackers until Sir Eris arrives. Suddenly, a horn blares from the distance, a new sound, sharp and triumphant. He looks up to see banners cresting the hill behind the Lannister lines, stags on golden fields. The new force crashes into Tywin's rear lines, throwing the Lannister army into chaos. The defenders on the walls cheer as the Lannister soldiers begin to waver.
Now's our chance. We must lead the Sortier. Break them while they're reeling. No, you've done your duty. Sir Eris, protect your Lord Commander. I'll lead the Sortier.
Jon hurries down and mounts a horse. He picks up the king's banner in one hand and waves it around, signaling the defenders to charge. Ghost by his side, knocking the first rider clean off his horse as Jon's troop meet Tywin's. The clash is brutal but short. Stannis' cavalry crushes Tywin's reserves, and despite being outnumbered, the shock sends them running. Soon the Lannisters are in full retreat, but Jon fights fiercely, cutting down stragglers. When the dust settles, the battlefield is littered with the dead, and the Red Keep still stands. Jon stands amid the carnage and finds Stannis there. He explains how after he gathered his levies on Dragonstone, he saw King's Landing was already under siege, so instead he gathered his troops to Duskendale and rode hard to take Tywin at the rear. However, it was Jon's quick reaction that allowed them to capitalize on the attack. Now the remnants of Tywin's host are being pursued by Roose Bolton's army. Jon gets praise from the two Kingsguard and Stannis when they return to the Red Keep. His sister excitedly embraces him when they see him safe. But this leaves the question of who shall rule.
If what Jon Arryn says is true, then by all rights I should be king.
Not all. There is another matter to consider. The final son of the Silver Prince.
Aegon, the boy is dead.
No, not his children by Ilya. He had one more son, with my sister. A boy I've sheltered for the last 15 years. Jon Snow, son of Rhaegar and Lyanna.
You expect me to believe this claim? To pass up my right? What evidence do you have?
Howland Reed bore witness to all that happened. But I admit I have no proof beyond what I saw. Yet you know me as an honorable man. I would not make up this claim.
My lord, I have seen this vision in my fire. It was not clear before, but I see it now. It is he who shall face the great other.
You once made the same claim for me.
I see you as well, your grace. You are standing by him, commanding his armies. But he is Azor Ahai, the last son of Rhaegar Targaryen.
The words send the room into silence, as everyone can only look at Jon Snow in surprise. And then, slowly, Ned eases himself to one knee. With their lord on their knees, the Stark men follow. Sir Barristan and Aerys look at one another and drop down as well. Lastly, Stannis gives a cool nod and kneels as well.
Then you have a difficult path, King Snow. I do not envy your position.
The rest of the Lannisters are soon mopped up, leaving Cersei, Tywin, and Jaime all in chains. Robb and his forces soon arrive to greet the new king, and are stunned to see Jon atop the Iron Throne. Rather than kneel, Robb embraces his brother and declares himself proud to serve. The rest of the Northmen and Rivermen all follow suit. Melisandre steps in the newly constructed temple of R'hllor in King's Landing to greet her new worshippers.
From the fires which burn before you, I have gleaned the future and saw the arrival of our new king. Once bound for the Night's Watch, he rode south alongside his father, not as a mere bastard, but as a protector of Lord Stark and the city.
The crowds all lean forward to hear her proclamation, some knights laughing as they know what will come next. As she raises her hands, the flames roar upwards until it touches the ceiling.
The flames reveal the truth of our queen's crimes and our children. They were creatures born from sin, an unholy union between brother and sister. To keep this a secret, she slew her king. But it is thanks to Lord Stannis and Eddard the lions were captured, and Tywin Lannister was beaten back when he tried to sack us once more. It was our king who fought and slew the mountain and held the city back.
Meanwhile, as this is happening, the new king sits with his small council to hear their words. Although known as Jon Snow, he has now been named Aenys II. Although they did manage to defeat Tywin, Renly gathered his army from the Reach and Stormlands. He outnumbers their current forces, and if it comes to battle, it will be bloody. Aenys considers this situation and then orders one of the prisoners to be brought before him. The heavy wooden doors creak open, and Tyrion Lannister is let in. His usual sardonic grin plays across his lips.
Your Grace, it's not often a king summons me. Shall I assume wine will be served, or are we skipping straight to the beheading?
That depends, Tyrion Lannister. How good are you at listening?
My ears work perfectly well, though I suspect I won't like what I hear.
On the contrary, how does Lord Tyrion sound to you?
You cannot be serious, Your Grace.
What about the accusations against him?
Ah, yes, the infamous dagger. I've lost count of how many times I've been accused of crimes I didn't commit. But let me remind you, I won my trial by combat.
With Renly, I'd rather have the Lannister gold mines on our side.
A pragmatic king. How refreshing. To become Lord of Castle Rock, a generous offer, considering my family's reputation among your council. A reputation well earned. I have one condition, Your Grace. My brother Jaime's life is to be spared. Whatever else you decide for my family, he is to remain unharmed. Meet this condition and I will become your man. If not, then you will learn just what little people can do.
Very well. So long as Jaime serves loyally and gives no reason to execute him, he is yours. Now, shall you bend the knee?
Bend the knee? Am I not short enough already?
Must you make everything so difficult?
Oh, if I'm to serve you, I most certainly will.
With that matter settled, more pressing matters rear their ugly head. With the Lannisters' support, they now begin gathering their allies. Ned leads a force down to reinforce King's Landing, while Brynden Tully is sent to Lysa Arryn, urging her to send reinforcements from the Vale. Melisandre learns that Renly has been spreading a story of how Aenys' ascension as king is actually a plot between the North and Stannis to seize the Iron Throne with a puppet. But as he is about to leave the court, he hears footsteps and a figure approaches him. Aenys is surprised to see the man, an older man in a black cloak, which marks him as a man of the Night's Watch. Aenys thinks back to his desire to join that order. Although it was only a few months ago, it feels like a lifetime, with everything that happened long ago. He beckons the man forward and listens to his words. Aenys at first thinks the man is there to ask for more men, but that is one thing he requests. There is more to the situation. With him is a pickled jar, and as the ranger recounts his story, the king's eyes widen as he hears it. According to him, the hand within came from a dead ranger, a ranger who rose up in the dead of night and tried to murder the Lord Commander. The ranger urges for help, asking the king to send men and supplies to fortify the failing watch. Aenys considers these words and promises he will do everything he can, but as he leaves the throne room, a familiar figure approaches him.
Must you sneak around like this?
As your new master of whispers, I assumed sneaking was part of my duties. This man brings dark words.
Dark wings, dark words. Do you see the dead in your fires as well?
I can sense your mockery, but the fires have revealed much before. It warns of trouble brewing in the north, ones which only a king can solve.
There is enough trouble here.
This is the troubles of men. Therefore, it should be men who settle it. But in the north, only one can bring order.
Aenys knows better than to try and argue with her, so instead agrees to visit the wall himself. Unsurprisingly, Stannis is greatly displeased by this. Even when he sees the hand, he reminds the king that they are already at war. But Ned seems a bit more open to the idea. He's partially motivated by worry about his brother, but he has long sensed trouble beyond the wall. Ned promises to help keep things together in the south long enough for Aenys to finish matters here. Stannis grumbles and vows to deal with Renly as Aenys makes preparations to sail off. Weeks later, the king rides alongside the wall, braving the bitter winds of the north with Melisandre. When they finally reach the wall, the sight of it takes Jon's breath away, as it always does. A colossal monument of ice, its jagged surface glimmers faintly in the pale sun. In contrast, Castle Black is far less impressive, and he finds Lord Commander Jorah Mormont in the Great Hall, nursing his wounded arm in a sling.
King Aenys. When I asked for men, I didn't think the king would come here. You didn't leave me much choice with that warning of yours, Commander. Aye.
He tells them of the attack, his voice steady despite the horrors he recounts. The dead came in the night, their eyes glowing with icy malice after they dragged them into the castle for examination. They moved with inhuman speed and strength, tearing through men and steel alike. Only fire stopped them and hacked them to pieces. Aenys examines the White's hand. The skin is gray and mottled, the fingers twisted into claws. It twitches faintly, even in death, as if some remnant of the dark magic animating it still lingers. Melisandre steps closer, her lips moving in quiet prayer as her hand hovers over the grotesque relic.
The Great Other's hand stretches far.
And it will take more than swords and shields to stop it. You've seen what's coming. Now you must prepare for it. You'll have your men. I'll inform my brother to send troops to the wall. I can send more once this war is over.
Before he leaves, another member of the Night's Watch calls to him, Maeston Aemon, who requests to return to King's Landing with him. But before they can depart, reports soon arrive of wildlings, an entire host of them assaulting the wall. Cursing, Aenys orders ravens to be sent to rob at once. With Aenys gone, the war effort falls to Lord Stannis, leading it to be called the War of the Stags. After weeks of preparation, Renly commands an army of nearly 100,000 strong, drawing from all the chivalry of the south. In contrast, Stannis commands a hodgepodge force consisting of the remnants of his, Tywin's, and Robb's armies. But what they lack in numbers, they make up for in experience. The first clashes between their armies are fierce, the forests and fields of the Stormlands soaked with blood as Stannis works to check their advance and hopefully sway a few more men to his cause. This is harder than expected though, as Stannis is not loved in the Stormlands the same way Renly is. While he does have royal backing, the king's absence is noted by the lords, who hesitate to send men to fight for them. Renly's bannermen eagerly throw themselves at Stannis' lines again and again, yet Stannis acquits himself and never fails to hold the lines. He skirmishes, evades, and ambushes them in battles that favor him. Each skirmish takes its toll on Renly's army, their confidence eroding as Stannis bleeds them dry. Some even begin to question why they are serving Renly and cross over to Stannis. The stalemate drags on for weeks. Stannis, though outnumbered, slowly narrows the gap. He rarely engages in proper battles save for when he finds favorable terrain, forcing Renly into costly assaults. Supplies dwindle, tempers flare, and the cracks in Renly's coalition begin to show. But Stannis knows time is not on his side. Every day the war drags on, Renly's forces have a chance to regroup, resupply, and reinforce. Finally, he is forced to confront Renly in an open battle. Even with this predicament, Stannis chooses his ground well, selecting a high ridge surrounded by thickets. Stannis places his men there and digs in for an attack. The ensuing battle is a brutal slog that favors the defenders as Renly's men struggle to reach the ridge, their formations broken and their troops in disarray. Here they are met with the spears of Stannis' men. Even when the knights advance on foot, they make little headway while the ridge protects their flank. Finally, after 5 failed assaults, Renly orders an all-out attack, and thousands of soldiers stream forward, preparing to crush them with sheer numbers. For a moment, this strategy seems to work, as Renly's men begin to break Stannis' defenses. But suddenly, a hail of arrows fly from the hedges and thickets from the hidden archers Stannis positioned there before the battle. Chaos spreads in the Stormlanders' ranks, causing men to drop their weapons and flee the battle. The situation only worsens when a charge by Stannis' light cavalry, commanded by Just Massey, smashes into their flanks and forces a mass retreat. Renly tries to rally his men, but it is no use, and Brienne escorts him to safety. His army begins to crumble. Wary of Stannis' wrath, many of his bannermen bend the knee to him. As his men celebrate the victory, a figure appears at the edge of Stannis' camp, Melisandre, who reports the situation on the wall. She explains how a wildling horde had attacked while Aenys was there. Thankfully, Robb Stark's arrival saves them and the wildlings are defeated. The king is now in King's Landing and sent her to help Stannis. The Hand growls that Aenys only arrived once the war was over, but gives Melisandre a task. Some rebel lords refuse to yield. Pockets of resistance form, lords too proud or too angry to swear fealty. Among them is Renly's band, which escapes to Storm's End. They meet up with Randyll Tarly, who finds them there. However, as they regroup and plan their next move, a chill runs through the camp, and a shadowy figure makes its way through the tent. Renly's knights can only gasp out in surprise, but the experienced Randyll is faster. He shoves Renly out of the way and parries the strike. He shouts for them to escape as he battles with the creature. They escape into the wilderness, and the next day Stannis' men find the body of Randyll. Though they search for the others, they are nowhere to be seen, and Renly and his followers flee across the narrow sea. Here they meet up with the Golden Company, who are conveniently marching east to join with Daenerys Targaryen. Among them is a man claiming to be Aegon VI, who hopes to unite his branch with Daenerys. The mention of another pretender makes his blood boil, and he promises to crush this Aenys. Eager to bolster their ranks, they welcome the exiles into their force. The journey to Meereen is difficult, as Daenerys finds herself under siege by a coalition of slavers. However, the presence of the Golden Company turns the tide, and she welcomes them as heroes. Renly Baratheon, humbled but unbroken, stands before Daenerys Targaryen in the Great Hall of Meereen. Brienne of Tarth stands at his side, silent but resolute, along with a few hundred men from the Reach and Stormlands.
You are the rightful queen of Westeros. I once sought the Iron Throne myself, but I see now that my claim was folly. I offer my service to you, not as a king, but as your hand. I know Westeros, its politics, its lords, its weaknesses. Let me help you reclaim it. I have heard tales of your exploits, even in the Seven Kingdoms. Together we shall bring it to its knees.
Daenerys studies him, her violet eyes narrowing. She listens to Renly and Brienne recount their flight from Westeros, their betrayal by Stannis in the north, and their tales of Aenys Targaryen, who they label a false dragon.
He is no true Targaryen. He is a puppet, a tool of the North and Stannis Baratheon. They used sorcery to prop him up. A shadow assassin tried to murder me in my tent.
Daenerys tenses at the mention of shadow magic. She recalls her own experiences with the warlocks of Qarth, and knows just how dangerous it is. Yet, as she looks at Renly, she remains suspicious.
You claim you wish to serve me, but you are the usurper's own blood.
To my deep regret. Who better to stop the usurpers? If you believed Robert was bad, you would despise Stannis. He is cruel, cold, and brutal. He worships a strange fire god which burns people at the stake, while this Aenys is said to be a bastard born of Ned Stark. I had hoped to stop this evil from spreading, but I realize I cannot do it alone.
The room is silent for a long moment, her gaze flickering to her advisors. The stories of shadows and false dragons unsettles her, but she sees the opportunity Renly represents. Westeros. His knowledge could be invaluable. Finally, she nods.
Very well, Lord Renly. You shall be my hand. But betray me, and no shadow assassin will be necessary to end you.
You have my loyalty, Your Grace. I will not fail you.
This alliance starts with a marriage. Renly finds himself a witness to the betrothal of Aegon VI and Daenerys. With the Seven Kingdoms united, their only hope of conquering Westeros is by joining their strength, something Renly advises. The invasion begins with the Targaryen fleet landing on the Stormlands, their region still reeling from the war. As many of Renly's men are from that area, they know the area well, and the first blow lands on the Isle of Tarth. In the dead of night, Brienne lands alongside Renly, where they meet with Lord Tarth. They warn that a massive army is arriving, and that they shall be overwhelmed if they do not surrender now. They warn of hordes of sellswords and freedmen, legions of Unsullied, and even some Dothraki. Selwyn Tarth glances up at the sky and notices Daenerys' dragons circling above, their roars echoing across the narrow straits. Reluctantly, he yields his castle. Renly, a Stormlord himself, directs the campaign, his knowledge of the terrain and the loyalties of the local lords proving invaluable. Now, with the Unsullied riding at his back, he has an army of unbreakable discipline. The initial attacks are swift and brutal, with Daenerys' dragons sowing terror among the defenders. Castles burn, and lords who once swore to Stannis now bend the knee to the Mother of Dragons for fear of destruction. However, the Reach remains unmoved. With Renly unable to offer Margaery as a queen, the Tyrells see no benefit in aiding Daenerys' cause. Instead, they pledge their forces to Stannis. Daenerys responds with fire and fury. Her dragons descend upon the Reach, laying waste to fields and fortresses. Meanwhile, the Reachmen who accompanied Renly take advantage of the chaos to strike and reclaim their lands. Raids are launched in the castles while men are out, allowing them to take them by surprise. Others simply ride ahead and warn their kin of the dragons and the fate of those who defy them. But the dragons aren't the only ones causing chaos. While they terrorize the larger castles, the Golden Company blitzes into the Reach. Even without siege equipment, their elite archers and elephants can break castle defenses, battering down gates and cutting through defenders. This lets them storm through these defenders with minimal casualties. For the first time in over a century, the Seven Kingdoms witness the devastation of dragonfire, and the sight shocks the realm. Major castles like Horn Hill, Peak, and Golden Grove face the wrath of these dragons, while their armies are scattered by the sight of them, leaving them easy prey to the Unsullied and Dothraki who accompany them. Yet, even as the Tyrells scramble to defend their lands and prepare Highgarden for a siege, Daenerys' army faces an unexpected attack from Dorne. Upon hearing how Aenys killed the Mountain and executed Lord Tywin, their allegiance was easy to secure, simply requesting their skulls as payment. Now a Dornish army led by the Red Viper lash out and nip at their heels. Though the Unsullied can handle any conventional foe, they are unprepared for the hit-and-run tactics of the Dornish, who are perhaps the only group who can match the Dothraki's speed and aggression. They strike along the marshes, trying to sever the Targaryen supply lines with the Stormlands before disappearing down the Boneway. Meanwhile, Stannis, Ned Stark, and Aenys II rally their forces, gathering men from the Riverlands, Crownlands, and Vale to join their army. Word is sent to Robb to rally his army, while Jaime and Tyrion rush to the Westerlands to gather their forces and reinforce the Tyrells. Even with these efforts, it seems like the First is closing for them as Daenerys focuses on taking Oldtown. While her dragons continue to rain fire on their foes, scattering any opposition, Renly leads the forces to strike at the city with Jon Connington. But they receive unexpected help from the north. Though Tyrion is technically the Lord of the Westerlands, few truly respect him, and some houses including Crackhall, Swift, and Lefford cross their banners and offer to join Daenerys. The sight of the dragons overhead reminds them of the Field of Fire, and they choose submission over annihilation. With these forces, they continue their siege of Oldtown, pressing the city hard as they desperately call for relief. Though it seems like that is but a distant dream, until one day when the army wakes up to see a cloud of dust in the distance. There were reports of a Lannister force approaching from the north, but they were days away. However, as they draw nearer, they see the distinctive armor of Jaime Lannister. The men can only scramble about in surprise as he approaches, having ridden ahead of his army with his cavalry. They smash through the enemy camp, cutting through the freedmen who assemble to stop them and avoid the Unsullied. However, the Dothraki are not so easily startled, and a force is soon sent to meet them. Jaime calls for a retreat just as they begin surrounding his army. He manages to escape with some of his men, but his force is badly bloodied. Other relief efforts by Stannis and Ned are equally unsuccessful, as the dragons can easily scatter whatever forces they have. Soon, Oldtown falls and leaves the Royalists in a difficult position. Stannis and Aenys recognize the futility of facing dragons in open battle, instead switching to guerrilla tactics, much like the Dornish. Their army splits into smaller, more mobile units, striking at supply lines, raiding camps, and disappearing into the terrain. Ned, Stannis, Jaime, Barristan, and Loras Tyrell all command these units and frustrate Daenerys' army. While they cannot keep her army from taking territory, Daenerys' army starts to feel its toll. While she continues her advance, her army begins to struggle to resupply and must turn to foraging and raiding, leaving them open to ambushes while slowly turning the people against them. The plan frustrates Daenerys, who finds herself unable to pin down her enemies. Though they can wipe out isolated bands of raiders, they cannot target any major leaders. The stalemate stretches on until reinforcements arrive from the north. Robb Stark leads the host, riding through the Riverlands. Here they finally have a foe they can meet in open battle, as Aegon, Renly, and their troops rush to meet the young wolf. The sight of these reinforcements breathes new life into the Royalist forces, who rally over to their side. But Robb chooses his battlefield carefully, opting to operate in Highheart, where the hill gives him an advantage. He doesn't just bring Northmen to his army. After his success in the Wall, he is now accompanied by free folk and giants. The wildlings prove to be an excellent addition to his army, as his wargs and raiders harass the army as they march, further slowing their advance and giving time for the rest of the army to regroup. Aenys, Stannis, and Ned survey the terrain, knowing the steep inclines and scattered boulders make it difficult to storm. It's a gamble to face them openly, but it's their best chance to stop their invasion. The Golden Company forms the vanguard, their elephants alongside them, with the Unsullied moving behind. The dragons circle, their shadows looming over the battlefield. The first wave begins with the infantry. The Unsullied advance up the hill, their disciplined ranks undeterred by the arrows raining down from above. The Royalists hold their positions, archers firing relentlessly while shield walls brace for impact, but the terrain works against them. As they reach the top, they find giants waiting for them. For once, their vaunted spear walls don't mean anything as the giants' clubs and hammers smash through the Unsullied ranks, starting to break their formation. The Golden Company fares no better, as even with combined arms of infantry, cavalry and archers don't break their lines as the giants retreat behind the shield walls of the Westerosi men, who return fire from their superior vantage point. The battle here is fierce, as Westerosi fights Westerosi, offering no quarters to these exiles and traitors. In the center of this force are Aegon VI and Renly. But as their forces begin to falter, the two try to rally their men to no avail, and soon find themselves surrounded and captured. As the infantry falters, Daenerys sends her cavalry next. The Dothraki screamers charge up the slopes, their war cries piercing the air. but the narrow paths and uneven ground make them easy targets for the royalist spearmen. The defenders hold firm, refusing to give ground even as the Dothraki crash against them like waves against a rock. Then come the elephants. Towering and unstoppable, they lumber up the hill, their tusks swinging through the defenders' ranks. For a moment, it seems the tide is turning. But the giants step further. Armed with massive spears, they hurl them with deadly precision, or simply wrestle them to the ground. Those that don't fall face the storm of javelins and arrows. With her army struggling, Daenerys must use her trump card, her dragons. Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion descend from the skies, their roars shaking the battlefield. Their fire rains down, engulfing the royalist lines in flames. Men and giants scream as they are consumed, their shields and armor useless against the inferno. The royalists retaliate with massive scorpions and ballista. As Rhaegar swoops low, a bolt fired from one of the scorpions finds its mark, striking the dragon's flank. Rhaegar screams in pain, his wings faltering as another bolt pierces his shoulder. The mighty beast crashes to the ground, crushing soldiers beneath him as he writhes in agony. The royalist forces see their chance and surge forward, spears and swords in hand, but Rhaegal thrashes wildly, his tail and claws carving through those who come too close. Aenys pushes through the chaos. Rhaegal turns to face him, smoke curling from his nostrils, his golden eyes blazing with pain and fury.
Stop!
To his astonishment, Rhaegal hesitates. The dragon snarls, his head lowering slightly, but he does not unleash his fire. Aenys steps closer, his sword still raised. The battlefield falls eerily silent as soldiers watch the strange scene unfold. Even Daenerys, circling high above on Drogon, stares in disbelief. But seeing this hesitation, Rhaegal takes the opportunity and flees. He flaps his wings and flies away, leaving the crowd stunned. Daenerys stares down at Aenys, her face a mixture of shock and rage. Then she orders a retreat.
A true Targaryen.
As the army retreats, Stannis approaches Jon and places a hand on his shoulder.
You may have just turned the tide of the war.
The island of Tarth is the busiest it has ever been as Daenerys and her court gather there to plan their next move. First, they gather information from their prisoners, including one aged knight.
All right. Explain this to me once more.
As you command. When Ned Stark arrived at King's Landing to serve as Hand of the King, he brought his bastard boy. At first, no one thought much of it, but the news brought Stannis back into the city, and the Red Woman.
The Red Woman?
Aye, Melisandre, a Shadowbinder from Asai.
A murderess. She tried to have me killed with a shadow creature that bore Stannis' face.
She says she saw things in the fire, a great destiny for Jon Snow. Soon enough it came true when Robert died at the hands of the Lannisters. Jon took command of the defenses, and his father revealed that Jon was the only son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, Aenys. Yet with his coronation, trouble came from the north and south. The north? I know about the south with Renly and how Stannis defeated him, but what did he see north? At first, a host of free folk tried to invade the wall, but they soon spoke of things far worse. White Walkers.
And you believe such things?
I believe them because an entire nation of people risked war to avoid them. After all, Aenys had to remain on the wall instead of thrashing you, boy. Instead, you fled across the narrow sea and brought back an army of foreigners.
You speak highly of one who abandoned you.
He was there when it mattered. He was there when you landed south and laid waste to the Reach, burning castles and seizing Old Town. He was there when you marched into the Riverlands. He was there to stop you at High Heart.
The mention of that place sends the room silent, as the Targaryen recalls the strange event in the battle when Aenys approached Rhaegal after he was shot down. While that should have been a death sentence, the dragon stared at him as if feeling some strange kinship before flying off. That thought racked Daenerys' head since the battle. She was told this claim was a deception, a falsehood to justify this northern dynasty to claim the throne, but none of her dragons ever behaved like that to anyone, save for herself. For the first time, she begins wondering if there is truth to their claim. But as those thoughts cross her mind, the debates rage across her about what to do. They suggest that the incident with Rhaegal is simply the actions of Stannis and his Red Woman. It is some vile sorcery meant to usurp power from them. But the scene continues to replay in her mind. If Aenys is truly a Targaryen, then the war may be a mistake, a tragedy that can be avoided. Her advisors call him a pretender, a puppet of the North and Stannis, but she cannot ignore what she sees. The bond between Rhaegal and Aenys was not born of sorcery, it was blood. She decides to reach out to Aenys to discuss a truce. For the first time, the idea of peace feels possible, but it also terrifies her. Meanwhile, in the Royalist camp, Aenys struggles to make sense of his new reality. His bond with Rhaegal haunts him as much as it inspires him. The sight of the dragon sparing him, lowering its head as if acknowledging his blood, should fill him with pride. Morale could not have been higher as the men take that incident as divine providence, a miracle from the Seven. Robb even named him Aenys the Dragon Tamer. While he knows he's a Targaryen, this is perhaps the first time the truth sinks in. Before the Targaryens were dead, and it was easy to ignore it. It was easy to see himself as a Stark first and foremost, with Robb and Ned. But now, some of his kin may live. Aenys doubts. He doubts his place, his claim, and most of all, the war itself. The endless bloodshed weighs heavily on him. He's toured the destruction of the Reach and Riverlands, some new scars and some old from the wars before. All the while something marches beyond the wall. He begins to consider perhaps the possibility of peace. Stannis listens to this idea and then calls him a fool. He reminds Aenys that Daenerys did not come to Westeros for peace. She came with fire and blood to take her crown, and in doing so, she has already caused untold destruction. How can they make peace now and forgive the destruction she's brought, the monsters she's unleashed, and the chaos she's sown?
Have you already forgotten the sacrifices made to put you on that throne? You would throw it all away. You would make peace with a queen who burns the very lands she seeks to rule. With a queen who unleashed dragons on the people we are sworn to protect.
We need every sword, every ally. Daenerys may have come for the throne, but she may also hold the key to saving Westeros. Can you not see that?
You were king because men like me bled for you. It was Sir Barristan who helped you defend that city, Lord Stark who secured your position, and it was me who fought my kin while you looked to the north.
And it was me who saw what those things could do to us.
And it is me who saw what those dragons and that queen did to our people now. If you do not see it, then you do not yet understand what it means to rule.
Enough. If there is a way to end this war without further suffering, we must take it. Winter is coming, and the realm will need every ounce of strength to survive it.
Perhaps this is the will of R'hllor. His path is not always straight, but it leads forward.
Aenys begins sending delegates to Daenerys, who sends her own ambassadors. They share their tales of what they experienced and why they wish for the throne. Terms are exchanged and rejected, but while there are harsh words, the fighting stalls, providing the people with much-needed relief. Farmers return to scorched fields, rebuilding what they can. Soldiers finally sleep without fear of fire falling from the sky. Amidst the chaos, Robb Stark leads the northern host to reinforce the wall. Robb's decision to withdraw northern forces frustrates Stannis, but helps diffuse tensions for the Targaryens. But not everyone enjoys this peace. Aegon VI grows increasingly isolated within Daenerys' camp. His star has faded under the shadow of Daenerys' growing power. Even with the war pausing, she commands the loyalty of dragons, her freedmen, and the Unsullied. Aegon only has Renly and the Golden Company, but without plunder and glory to win, it is only a matter of time before he loses them. He and Jon try to keep morale up, rallying them, and during one of these meetings, Viserion approaches their camp. For a moment, he worries that the dragon senses his efforts, but to his surprise, the pale dragon sniffs him. He blinks and cautiously reaches out, his heart pounding, but as the dragon's golden eyes meets his, a strange understanding passes between them. Aegon reaches out and touches Viserion's scales. He was often seen as the runt of their pack, much as Aegon finds himself amongst the Targaryens. The bond forms quickly, and many in the camp are surprised by the sight. Chief amongst them is Daenerys, but she sees how protective Viserion is to Aegon, and a reminder that he is her husband silences her. However, it is a much-needed boost to Aegon. While there is peace, some lords in the Reach and Stormlands still wish to continue the war. They see this as a sign of Aegon's legitimacy. Among them is Renly, who proposes a bold move, to try to capture Storm's End. He hopes to convince the garrison to yield the castle to him, reminding them that he has been their lord longer than Stannis. Having Viserion there might encourage them to surrender. As they approach the gates at dawn, Renly raises his hand in a gesture of parley. Sir Gilbert Ferring answers his call, but rejects his claim and orders him to leave. Renly's charm falters and his face hardens. As he rides off, one of his party raises his bow and fires a single arrow into the sky. Suddenly, Viserion descends from the sky with a bone-chilling roar, his pale form gleaming in the morning light. The sight of the dragon sends the garrison into chaos. Soldiers scramble along the walls, some freezing in terror, others rushing to ready their weapons. Aegon rides closer to let himself be seen. However, Sir Gilbert's second-in-command, a shaky boy named Lord Meadows, hurriedly orders his men to fire. Arrows fly and a few bolts from scorpions loose. One grazes Viserion's wing, drawing blood. Viserion roars in fury. Aegon shouts for the dragon to stop, but it's too late. Viserion unleashes a torrent of pale fire upon the battlements, scattering the men on the walls. Soldiers scream as they flee, abandoning their posts. The gates of Storm's End remain closed, but the castle's defenders are broken, retreating deeper into the keep. All except for a small band led by Gilbert Ferring.
What have you done? This wasn't part of the plan. You were just supposed to frighten them. They attacked us first. Viserion panicked.
Renly curses and runs up to the gates, insisting on his innocence in what happened. But Sir Gilbert doesn't hear it and immediately seizes him and his party. Aegon can only watch as he flies off. The act is taken as a clear act of aggression. Within hours, word spreads of the attack as ravens are sent to Stannis, who begins marshalling his forces to march south. The tenuous peace begins to unravel. Lords in the royalist camp murmur of betrayal, urging Aenys to prepare for a renewed conflict and saying she is stuck after Robb Stark's forces withdrew. In Daenerys' camp, she tries to perform damage control, but many urge her to prepare for war. The news that Stannis is marching south is impossible to ignore. Jon Connington reminds her that Aegon is still her husband, and if he were to die, especially with Viserion, it would fracture her cause. The escalating danger pushes Aenys to act. While he still wishes for peace, this is too much for him to ignore. In desperation, he pens a letter to Daenerys directly, telling her that only they can prevent war from restarting. He suggests that he and Daenerys arrest Aegon. As he has no troops, they can work on their own and suggest meeting on the border of their territory. The ancient mist shrouding the Isle of Faces feels like a place untouched by time. Towering weirwood trees with carved faces surround the clearing where Aenys waits. He hears the faint sound of wings before he sees her. Drogon's massive black shadow passes over the treetops, followed by Rhaegal's green form. When Daenerys dismounts from Drogon, her expression is wary but cautious.
You've brought no guards.
I need none. If this meeting fails, it won't matter how many guards I bring. The realm will burn either way.
You have risked much to meet me here.
Aegon must be stopped. If Stannis arrives, it will plunge us all into war. I know your advisors push you to strike first, to take advantage of the chaos. If that happens, we'll lose everything we've worked for.
And what do you propose?
We arrest Aegon before anyone else can act. If we take him alive, there will be no excuse for war. Our advisors won't have a choice but to follow our lead. We ride, together, on Dragonback.
You would ride Rhaegal.
Yet Annie's voice isn't filled with greed or lust. It's uncertainty and a bit of desperation.
If this is to work, we need to move faster than anyone else can. 2 riders are better than 1. And if I am truly who I claim to be, Rhaegal will allow it.
Do you know why I named him Rhaegal? After my brother, Rhaegar.
My father.
You don't sound certain.
How can I call a man I never knew my father? Though I wish I had. But perhaps this will be as close as it can be.
As do I.
Though he never sired me, it was Ned Stark who raised me and protected me. He has always been a father to me, and always will be.
Ned Stark. All my life I've only known him as the usurper's dog. I've never truly known him.
He's a good man, who would put the lives of others over his honor. Rhaegar may be gone, but he still lives. Perhaps you should meet him first, to decide for yourself.
Indeed. Now come. If Rhaegal accepts you, we ride.
Aenys approaches the dragon slowly. Rhaegal lowers his head, sniffing at him, his breath hot and heavy. Aenys places a trembling hand on the dragon's snout, and to his astonishment, Rhaegal lowers himself, allowing Aenys to climb onto his back.
The blood of the dragon.
Moments later, they take to the skies, Rhaegal and Drogon soaring together over the trees and hills, their mighty wings slicing through the air. Aenys grips Rhaegal's spine tightly. Aenys can talk to the lords and small folk all, piecing together every bit of information to narrow down his location. Meanwhile, Daenerys uses her knowledge of the dragons to figure out where he might nest. They find Aegon near his stronghold in Kingswood, Viserion perched atop a craggy hill. The pale dragon lets out a sharp cry as they approach, but Rhaegal and Drogon circle him. Viserion flinches, cowed by their presence. Aegon, standing at the base of the hill, looks up as the two dragons land before him, their riders dismounting.
Aegon, this madness ends now. You will yield.
You are not fit to command me. The crown is mine by right. My claim is stronger than either of yours. You have no authority over me. The crown is not a prize, Aegon. It's a weight on your head. It demands sacrifices you cannot begin to imagine. The realm is bleeding, and if we continue like this, there won't be a realm left to rule.
He pauses, thinking of Stannis, who taught him those things, and then sees Aegon.
There was a boy not too long ago who only saw the realm as a prize to be won. He nearly dragged us into war. I am not Joffrey. No. But if you continue this path, the differences between you two will grow smaller and smaller. Is that what you wish, Aegon? To become no different than the boy usurper?
Daenerys looks at her nephew, surprised by the harshness of his rebuke. But it seems to work as Aegon looks down at his feet, shame crossing his face. Then he nods his head.
What do you want from me? Surrender to us and accept the consequences. No harm will come to you or your followers. Very well. I yield.
By the time Stannis' host arrives, Aegon is bound and under guard. Aenys and Daenerys stand side by side, Rhaegal and Drogon looming behind them. As Stannis rides into the clearing, his men tense at the sight of the dragons. Between them, Aegon stands with chains around his arms, but his head held high. The Lord of Dragonstone looks up, his face a mixture of irritation and begrudging respect.
So you've saved us the trouble.
You said that I forgot the sacrifices of my men. Let it never be said that I do not value those who serve under me, so much so that I wouldn't try to waste their lives. War is avoided, Lord Stannis. Aegon is captured, and the realm will not bleed today.
You are a fool and a reckless boy. But this was a clever move.
With the royal couple already there, negotiations begin to take place with Storm's End as they decide what to do moving forward. Now more than ever, peace seems possible, and Daenerys can see the wisdom in her nephew. This helps put her at ease that the Seven Kingdoms are in good hands. But as they begin to make some progress, the door opens, and Ned Stark strides in, his face pale and grim.
The wall has fallen. The armies of the dead have breached it. Robb's host tried to hold them, but they were overwhelmed. The remnants are retreating to Winterfell, but without aid, they won't survive. Then there is no time to waste. The White Walkers are here. The war in the south means nothing if the north falls. We must march north now.
I have my forces with me now, and I can gather reinforcements as we march. But getting north will take time.
My forces are still in the Reach. If ships can be found, then we can sail them north.
It will take too long. We can't wait for the armies to gather. If Winterfell falls, the north is lost. The three of us, we ride ahead on the dragons. We fly day and night. If we can hold Winterfell until the reinforcements arrive, we might have a chance.
3.
Aenys glances at Aegon, and his face hardens.
You've made a grave mistake coming here. But if you truly wish to grow into the wise king you think yourself, then now is the time to march. We need every dragon we can get. I will fly with you.
I will begin mustering the southern lords. We'll march as fast as we can while Lord Tyrion can transport the Queen's army up north. But know this, Aenys. If you fail, Winterfell will not be the last to fall.
The three Targaryens take flight, their dragons soaring into the cold northern skies. Rhaegal, Drogon, and Viserion cut through the air, flying without rest and ignoring icy winds. The long nights stretched endlessly ahead. Daenerys and Aenys exchange a few words, their focus on the horizon. Aegon remains quiet, his hands gripping Viserion's reins tightly, his unusual bravado dimmed by their task ahead. When they finally reach Winterfell, the sight is bleak. The castle stands defiant against the snow, its walls bristling with makeshift defenses. Smoke rises from within as the women and children are sheltered in the keep, while those who remain fight to hold the outer defenses. Catelyn Stark stands on the battlements, along with Arya and Sansa, coordinating supplies and appearing to help raise morale. Whites swarm the outer walls like a tide, their icy shrieks piercing through the howling wind. Then a roar splits the sky. The defenders look up as Drogon dives, his flames engulfing the undead below. Rhaegal and Viserion follow. For the first time in days, hope ignites in the hearts of the defenders. They cheer as the three Targaryens swoop low. Large portions of the battlefield are burned to provide the defenders with some relief. For several days, the dragons hold the dead at bay. Aenys, Daenerys, and Aegon take turns directing their dragons, burning through waves of whites, and even taking down a few White Walkers. However, the walkers are smarter than they seem, and after the first days, they begin to target the dragons, hurling icy spears and setting traps. They happily sacrifice hundreds of whites as bait to target the dragons. Some of these spears graze the dragons, slowly wearing them down. But as the dead press relentlessly, the dragons buy precious time. Slowly, contingents of southern soldiers begin to arrive. Unsullied, freedmen, sellswords, and Lannister men land on the stony shores. Stannis' forces, Riverland Knights, and even Reachmen all rush in from the south, riding as fast as they can. The dragons ensure they have room to ride in Winterfell, stiffening the defenses or launching hit-and-run attacks. Slowly, the battle begins to even out as the ancient castle gains extra defenders, while the dragons remain kings of the sky. That is, until one night, as a blizzard descends on Winterfell. But amidst the howling winds, a guttural roar, deep and unnatural, echoes across the snow. From the storm emerges a massive creature, its wings blotting out the moonlight. Its body is skeletal and covered in jagged ice, its eyes burning with a cold, malevolent blue. Upon its back rides the Night King, his expression as unfeeling as death itself, atop an ancient ice dragon. The defenders of Winterfell freeze as the ice dragon descends, its frost-rimmed wings sending gusts of freezing air across the walls. The creature unleashes a torrent of icy breath, shattering sections of the outer defenses and freezing men where they stand.
We cannot let it destroy Winterfell. We have to face it.
Aegon hesitates, staring at the Night King with a mixture of fear and fury. But a look from Aenys helps rally him, and he follows after them. Aegon nods grimly, mounting Viserion. The three dragons rise into the blizzard, their roars cutting through the storm as they ascend to face the Night King and his ice dragon. As they fly higher, a burst of icy wind strikes them from the side. Daenerys urges them to scatter as the ice dragon flies past them, larger than Balerion, larger than any dragon. It swipes at them, but the three are already moving. The storm churns around them, a vortex of snow and wind that seems to move with the Night King's will. Rhaegal circles wide, striking the dragon's flank with his fire, while Drogon dives beneath the ice dragon, biting into his soft belly. Viserion lunges forward, his pale form almost invisible against the snow, snapping at the ice dragon's tail. But the larger beast swings around with a brutal slash of its claws, sending Viserion tumbling through the air. Aegon steadies Viserion and flies back in. The ice dragon unleashes a torrent of frost, the ice breath freezing in the air itself. Rhaegal dives to avoid it, but the edge of the blast catches one of his wings, frost creeping over his body and forcing him to break off and steady himself. Drogon surges upward, flames spewing from his jaws in a wide arc, burning across his belly and briefly illuminating its silhouette. But then one of its claws rakes across Drogon and sends him flying. He pursues and tries to bite him. Drogon roars in pain, but Daenerys holds firm, steering him into a tight roll that sends the ice dragon momentarily off balance. As they are scattered, the ice dragon sweeps his mouth and unleashes a chilling volley of cool air all around them, nearly scattering them. But they attack from three sides. Rhaegal attacks from above, flames bursting from his jaws, while Viserion snaps at the ice dragon's tail. Drogon charges head-on, his massive form colliding with the creature in a thunderous crash. The dragons roar as they grapple midair, clawing and biting, their wings beating furiously to stay aloft. The Night King stands unmoving on his mount, his icy spear in hand. He raises it, aiming it at Drogon as the black dragon grapples with his mount. Aenys sees the movement and urges Rhaegal forward. The green dragon dives, slamming into the ice dragon's flank just as the Night King throws his spear. The weapon grazes Drogon's wing but misses its mark, falling into the snow below. The force of Rhaegal's attack sends the ice dragon tumbling, and for a moment, the Night King falters, his grip loosening. Aegon seizes the opportunity, directing Viserion to lunge forward. The pale dragon clamps its jaws onto the ice dragon's tail, dragging it downward. The Night King steadies himself, his glowing blue eyes locking onto Aegon. He raises his hand, and the storm intensifies. Aenys feels Rhaegal struggling against the gale as the frost on his tail grows. But Daenerys appears beside him, and the two dragons unleash their fire together, the flames converging on the ice dragon. The flames engulf the creature, and for a moment it seems as though the fire will consume it. But the ice dragon roars, ice already regrowing on his body. It does distract them, though, allowing Aegon to slam into the ice dragon from the side, sending both tumbling out of the air. But as Viserion falls, Drogon and Rhaegal are close behind, catching him and steadying the falling dragon. Aegon nearly tumbles off, barely clinging to his spine. Once he is ready to fly again, the three descend to the falling ice dragon. It thrashes wildly, its movements slowing as the combined flames of Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal scorch its body. The Night King manages to stumble out, but Aegon throws Aenys something. Black fire, which he unsheathes and rushes at the Night King before he can recover. The ancient being looks up just as the black blade plunges into his heart and shatters into pieces. As the dead crumble around them, those within Winterfell and far beyond begin to cheer as the sun starts to set. With the White Walkers defeated, a great council is called to discuss the fate of the Seven Kingdoms. This battle has proven to Daenerys beyond a doubt that Westeros is in good hands. She gladly leaves it to Aenys, who remains king. Instead, she intends to free Slaver's Bay for good. To this end, Aenys agrees to send a force of volunteers, including many free folk who wish to see the world and share her ideals. Aegon, meanwhile, takes command of the Golden Company, but instead of simply serving as a sellsword company, they are enrolled as the new Royal Army. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.